Welcome to the 5 Minute Book Review for Christian leaders engaging in global transformational development and integral mission. Today, I am reviewing a classic. This is by the late, great Ronald Sider. This is Rich Christians in an Age of Hunger. This was released by Thomas Nelson Publishing. This book is foundational reading for any Christian that has a heart for the poor and wants to address global inequality from a distinctly Christian worldview. So when I teach global development to college students, this is mandatory reading because it captures God's heart and what our posture should be. But it's more than just a heart posture. Sider shares what our ethics and our practices should look like as Christians. There's a few things that I really love about Rich Christians in an Age of Hunger. First, as the title suggests, Sider is not someone that's going to pull any punches. He has a heart for the church, and it's the type of care where he's not just going to pacify our consumeristic inclinations. This is about actual discipleship. So from there, he jumps into how Christians are interacting with society at large and what the church can be doing. One of the things that we see is how Christians engage in the public square with their words, even in good things like advocacy, but what are they actually doing in their own churches? So a quote from the book that I love is, "Too many Christians' social action is ineffective because Christian leaders call on the government to legislate what they cannot persuade their church members to live." Now, that might sting. I'm an Anabaptist, so I'm kind of tracking with that, but I know that I need that truth, as does my church. There's stuff like that throughout this book. The second thing that I love about this book is that the message is hopeful, while at the same time it's describing the raw truth. I'll give one example while he's talking about the global economy, which obviously in our current year of 2026 is largely shaking by changes in world order. And I wonder what Sider would say about some of these changes. But what's interesting with Sider is that as he talks about the global economy, he acknowledges that international trade is disadvantageous to the global South. But at the same time, multinational corporations actually have a great opportunity to address global poverty if they chose to. So the fact is that it costs less to provide a living wage in the global South. I used to live in Tanzania for several years. I'm very familiar with that. But while, of course, we are building towards gradual economic growth for all people, the difference in cost of living is not necessarily a bad thing. Now, the problem is that multinational corporations take advantage of lower regulation and so forth, which exploits the cheap labor rather than giving that living wage. But if there was a change in our ethics and our practices, it is actually possible for both the worker and the corporation to progress. Now, I have regularly reflected on this as I consider some of the known bad multinational corporations in the world, like Nestle, Nike, Walmart, etc., and just the potential that is left undone if organizations like those, corporations like those, don't change. But there is hope, and Sider actually shares that throughout the book. Third thing that I loved, Sider really cuts through the false dichotomy that we often establish, often along political lines, about where does pain, injustice, and suffering come from? Is it the result of individuals or is it the result of systems? And Sider's answer is yes. Injustice is a result of both individual shortcomings and also the result of social structures that are put in place. I think that this is a message that we all need to hear. And more importantly, it gives us all something that we can do about injustice, both personally and in the community. So throughout the book, Ronald Sider's interacting with data from a range of credible international sources, as well as the best thinkers in global development, not just the Christian ones. If you're interested in a synthesis of theology, practice, global development theory from a Christian perspective, I would say Sider is still the place to go. One obvious critique of the book is that while it is seminal in Christian humanitarianism, it is also getting dated. He uses a lot of data, but there won't be updated versions, as unfortunately Professor Sider did pass in 2022. There have been critiques of his work all the way back in the 80s, largely coming from the Christian right that disagreed with his views on poverty and economics, but his work has withstood the test of time. And I think we're all grateful for it. Highly recommend reading Rich Christians in an Age of Hunger. You'll underline a lot, and it'll challenge you in your discipleship and the formation of your thinking around poverty and development. So please go ahead and like this video and put something good in your algorithm by subscribing to our channel here with Canopy International. We are going to be releasing book reviews on Mondays and Thursdays, and we have our podcast, Think Global, Do Justice, with leading development educators and nonprofit leaders every other Tuesday. Thanks so much for watching.